She used to get insomnia leading up to her procedures and get quite worried and ask a lot of questions about the upcoming procedures. Would be very nervous on the morning of. The last few times she's waltzed in here with her crown on and she's been smiling. She gets in, she gets it done.
Hi, this is Mind Chat, a podcast about mental health by and for young people. I'm Lauren, your host. In today's episode, we are talking about needle and procedure anxiety and the impacts it can have on young people living with a chronic illness. It's common for young people who suffer from chronic illnesses to develop some form of procedure anxiety over time. Today, we chat to 11-year-old Georgia. Georgia was diagnosed with Crohn's disease and suffers from severe needle phobia and procedure anxiety. Georgia will be joined today by social worker Siobhain Lowthe. Siobhain has helped Georgia work through her anxiety and better cope with her procedures. Hello to you all, and thank you for joining us today to share Georgia's journey.
Hi, and thanks for having me.
So Georgia, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, I'm in year 6 and I like to write stories and play imaginary games and play with my toys.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your illness?
Crohn's disease is like where your immune system, instead of fighting the germs, it fights against different parts of your body, and it makes my tummy hurt. And sometimes when it's not doing that, it still makes my tummy hurt all the time.
What sort of test have you had to go through to figure out that you had Crohn's disease?
Well, when I was younger, I had my tummy hurting and we didn't know it was Crohn's disease yet, and we just thought it was worry pains. Then when I was like 7, really close to Christmas and my birthday time, we went to hospital and that's when they diagnosed me as Crohn's disease. I remember we had to do lots of surgeries and I made up the butterfly and we did all these MREs and MRIs and we had to do the practice of the MRI. Well, of the MRE, even though we were doing an MRI instead. And then we had to have an MRE and I was like, yeah, I know how to do that now. Yeah, that was cool.
So it sounds like that you've gone through a lot of testing to find a diagnosis. That must have been really difficult for you. So it's great to see that you're here smiling and you've come through to the other side. How often do you have to come to hospital to have appointments or infusions and get your, different tests done?
Well, I have to come in for an infusion every 8 weeks. And I guess we have appointments with Dr. Dutt sometimes.
Yeah. Is there one particular test that you dislike the most?
MREs.
MREs? Why is that?
Because of the stuff I have to drink. It tastes really bad. And the breathing is kind of annoying as well. Like on MRIs, I just have to have a cannula, go in, watch a movie, don't move. It's just easy. And then for MREs, I have to have a cannula, drink some stuff, go in, lie on my belly, not allowed to watch a movie or listen to music. Have to hold my breath for a long time, and then we can go.
That's a lot of appointments and procedures to go through. Very brave. They must be quite scary at times. So I just want to know how you cope with getting through those procedures.
Well, a lot of the time I make up imaginary ways, like Octopius. He's my anxiety and he talks to me when I have my cannulas.
So Georgia, what does Octopius tell you when you're going to have a cannula?
Well, he says, you can't do it and you're just going to mess everything up and you can't have the cannula, you can't do it. Makes my legs kick and push people away from me so that I can't get the cannula. And I don't like doing that. It's not me.
Could you tell us, Georgia, who is Queen Onka?
Queen Onka the Conqueror. She's what I call myself when I'm in the fusion. I put on a crown. I go in with Lucy and Rufus, and I'm the queen of conquering. Watch out, Octopius. Queen Onka's here.
That is a very imaginative name and concept. You are very creative.
Yeah, I like to create books and stories and stuff with my friend who also likes imaginary games, Layla. We made a language together even. We love contracts as well, and we made Queen Anka the Conqueror's contract.
How does the contract work, Georgia? Do you write it down? Is it typed up or?
Well, we wrote it down on a piece of paper and it's got my little symbol of Queen Anka on it. We signed it with our signature really.
How does it make you feel after you've signed it?
Well, it makes Queen Anka feel powerful, like she can defeat Octopius and lock him in jail for another 8 weeks.
I love the sound of that. They sound like some seriously cool techniques, Georgia, and it's amazing that they have helped you so much. Could you tell us a little bit more about bunny breathing?
Well, bunny breathing is where you sniff 3 times in your nose, like a bunny looking for a carrot, and then breathe out a long breath through your mouth. And it really helps me calm down and get ready for the infusions.
So can you actually just quickly do it for us so we know what it's like?
Like that.
Sounds really relaxing.
Yeah.
And what about Warrior Ninjas?
Warrior Ninjas is Warrior Ninjas karate chop their warriors into a box and only have one certain time of day where you let them out. Oh, and there's also cooked spaghetti and uncooked spaghetti. When you say uncooked spaghetti, it's you get all tight and like that. And then cooked spaghetti is all wobbly and nice and delicious.
Sounds like amazing tools to help cope with your anxiety. Siobhain, you've played a big part in trying to help Georgia cope with her procedure anxiety and her needle phobia. What exactly is procedure anxiety and needle phobia? How common is it and how does it impact family and friends?
Yeah, it's an extremely common response for children and also even adults. And I guess it develops over time, particularly for people who have to go through a lot of procedures. Our bodies start to be aware of what's going to happen, particularly if we've had a painful experience in the past. And so our bodies can make us be a little bit more vigilant about the experience that we might have to undergo in the upcoming procedure. So we do see it a lot in the CL team. We see a lot of children who have a chronic illness and a coexisting anxiety difficulty or a phobia difficulty. And it does tend to impact the whole family.
And could you also very quickly explain what the CL team is?
The CL team is the team that we work on consult and liaison, but we're part of the bigger Department of Psychological Medicine that supports kids when they have these difficulties in the hospital. But we specifically work with children with chronic illness who have a coexisting mental health difficulty.
At what point does your team get involved with patients in terms of worries and anxiety?
That's a really great question, and we look at how is the fear and worry impacting the child, their family and their treatment. So usually it's very common for all children in a hospital setting to experience some worries and some fears about the treatments that they're going to receive. We have other wonderful services in the kids' hospital, such as the child life therapists, who will support children to feel more comfortable, just as Georgia was talking about going through practice sessions about her procedures. However, sometimes the child needs a little bit of extra help to conquer an anxiety. Sometimes a fear gets bigger and more persistent, and sometimes we might also see it happening outside of hospital, which was also something that was starting to happen for Georgia. And so when it gets to that level, that's when we think that some more targeted psychological interventions and therapies are needed. Not just the distraction and the preparation, but also some different psychological interventions that help the child get that sense of conquering the anxiety.
Could you possibly describe some of the types of intervention?
Yeah, sure. So there are a huge range of ways that we would approach this, and it depends on the individual child and the strengths that they bring to the therapy. So as you would have noticed, Georgia is an extremely intelligent and creative, imaginative young girl. And so the intervention that we chose to take with her was to externalise the anxiety. So to give it its own identity and to create a different narrative that would allow her to take control over that narrative and rewrite components of it to put herself more in a position of power.
Are there any other interventions that you could possibly talk about?
Yeah, sure. So sometimes we might just use therapeutic or relationship-oriented strategies. Sometimes we might, and in George's case and in other kids as well, we bring in family members. So we might do some education with parents about how to best respond to the anxiety separate to their child, how they normally respond to their child, because it does require a slightly different response. So it might be a whole family engagement in the process, and sometimes it might be just parents on their own and giving them a few little backgrounder tips, I guess, in that psychoeducation. Sometimes we'll engage medication. Sometimes we'll also use medication that can help the child's body kind of calm down a little bit to give them that sense of conquering. And so once they've had a little bit of that, they often can then get the momentum naturally themselves. And so that's something that in psychiatry we also employ in the Department of Psychological Medicine sometimes. There's such a huge range of strategies for conquering anxiety. Sometimes it can be as simple as sensory input. So some kids really respond well to having a sensory toy that they can play with during the procedure to distract the sensations in their body and put them somewhere else, for example, in their hands. And there are, I guess, a lot of different therapeutic approaches that clinicians will use in our department that we can all kind of draw from. A lot of them really start with those body-based strategies of trying to relax the body, and then we can either use, for example, a meditation or a visualization to help the child feel like they're in a nicer place than they are when they're in the hospital. There are lots and lots and lots and lots. I can't even kind of capture how many different therapeutic approaches they are, but they all have these common themes of making sure the child feels safe, trusts who they're working with, and has support from people around them in the process of applying the strategies that they're learning.
It's incredibly detailed work. Georgia has told us about the techniques in terms of coping with her anxiety. What changes have you noticed in Georgia since then?
Oh my goodness. I mean, not just what I've noticed, but what her family have reported. She used to get insomnia leading up to her procedures and get quite worried and ask a lot of questions about the upcoming procedures, would be very nervous on the morning of. The last few times she's waltzed in here with her crown on and she's been smiling, still nervous, still has that little bit of anxiety, but she uses her strategies herself. She doesn't need reminding from other people, and she, I guess, doesn't stall as much. The big thing, that's the biggest difference. She used to stall, but she gets in, she gets it done, and she doesn't have the same kind of remorse that she used to have afterwards and shameful reaction for the things that the anxiety had made her body do.
It's lovely to see how far Georgia has come.
She's a superstar. We keep telling her that she can have a job at our department.
Very bright future.
Well, hope that everyone can find their own way of doing it. Like, you don't have to use your imagination to defeat octopi or whatever you call or shape your anxiety. Like, I've listened to someone say, like, oh, hello, fear, let's put you in my back pocket for now. Yeah, so thanks for having me, and yeah.
Georgia, we really appreciate you sharing your story with us today. It really helps our listeners who might be going through a similar experience or know someone close to them going through this as well. A massive thank you to Siobhain as well. Your insight has been amazing.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you doing this for all the other patients as well who Georgia can help.
If this topic has raised anything for you, there's help out there. Talk to your family, friends, school, and tell your GP if you're feeling stressed, anxious, or down. You can call the Mental Health Access Line on 1800 011 511 or go to the Head to Health website, headtohealth.gov.au for services and resources. This podcast is brought to you by Sydney Children's Hospitals Network. Thanks to all of you out there for joining us today. We look forward to your company again in our next episode of Mind Chat. Until then, bye for now.